Sky healthcare and insurance costs, extremely modest gains against chronic disease. Thousands die yearly due to drug reactions. What can be done? Thomas Edison is quoted as declaring, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but interest his patients in diet and nutrition, exercise, and the care of the human frame. He will teach them about the cause of all disease. The doctors of the future are here." Welcome your host, Keith Henry, ND, one of the doctors of the future.
Welcome you wherever you may be listening from around the U.S. and around the world. I'd like to welcome you to Phase 3 Wellness. We have an exciting and informative show for you today. We're going to be talking about quite a few topics, very interesting topics. Our main topic, of course, today is how to detoxify your brain. Some new research is out with respect to that we're going to talk about in our first segment, which is the Week in Natural News Review segment. I'd like to welcome you, especially my friends over in Costa Rica. I also like to remind you that you can visit me on at facebook.com/NatureDoc. That's facebook.com/NatureDoc. And I have also a Twitter page as well as a YouTube page. And I'll be making that information to you available in the coming weeks. We just want to do some redesigning there with those pages, and then we'll be giving you that information. And we're going to look at our first article. This is the Week in Natural News Review segment. If you haven't listened before, this is the segment where I look at articles that came out with respect to primarily natural health, sometimes other issues in health, but primarily natural health, alternative medicine, etc., and health issues in general. Articles that came out primarily from natural health sites, sometimes from the popular mainstream media sites if a good article comes out dealing with health, and we try and deal with the article that came out in the following week. Hence, this segment is called the Week in Natural News Review, and we're going to be talking about a very interesting concept. And this is our concept. I read a couple of articles on it, and one from naturalnews.com I read, and the other one from Mercola.com. And I read both of them, but we'll cite the one from Mercola.com for now. It came out on October 31st by Dr. Mercola. And the article was entitled, "Sleep is Critical for Brain Detoxification, Groundbreaking Research Finds." And I read an additional article as well, but we'll discuss. I'll throw a little in from that one as we discuss this one and cite some of the quotes from this one. But interestingly enough, if you listened here before, you know that I talk about we have laws of health, essentially 8 laws of health. The first one is trust in the Creator. The second one is sunshine. The next one is exercise. The next one is water, then air, then rest and diet, and then self-control or temperance. And so here we have an outline of what I call the ultimate healing system. There is a health plan that you can be on. If you follow it, that can be improved upon, that will give you better health results for prevention or for curing or healing than those laws of health. Now, those laws of health are broad, and there are subsections under those laws of health. Like, for instance, if I say under the healthcare law, water. Yes, we know there's water, but then we look at it, how does water affect the body beneficially? How can water be used therapeutically? It can be used therapeutically internally. It can be used therapeutically externally. We use it for hydrotherapy. We use it in herbal combinations. We use it for wet baths, for steam baths. But there are different ways to use water. And so when you begin to look at water, the broad healthcare law is water, but then how do you use it to stay healthy? How do you use it to heal the body after getting sick? And so this is when I talk about the laws of health, I'm talking about the broad categories, and each law of health has a wealth of information of healing that falls underneath it. And the one thing that we're going to talk about today is the health law of sleep, and this new research that has come out recently, and that ties sleep to the detoxification of our brains. Again, in this particular article, Dr. Mercola points out how scientists have long tried to tease out the purpose of sleep. And, of course, he says there are countless studies that have concluded that sleep is deeply interconnected with your health in a myriad of ways. And just one example, he says, previous research has found that sleep deprivation has the same effect on your immune system as physical stress or illness. So here we have before, and we've talked about this on here before, different benefits of the laws of health. But just so you know, sleep deprivation suppresses your immune system, and it has the exact same effect on your immune system as if you were stressing, because the lack of sleep causes the body to stress. It's a stressor, or as illness. He goes on to point out further, quite simply, if you do everything else right, if you don't sleep enough, your health and well-being will still suffer. You may even die prematurely should poor sleep plague you long term. Then he points out how researchers at the University of Rochester Medical Center, URMC Center for Translational Neuromedicine, believe they may have discovered yet another clue as to why sleep is mandatory for good health, and especially our brain health. He said that their report published in the journal Science reveals that our brain has a unique method of removing toxic waste through what's been dubbed the lymphatic system. Now, you've heard me talk on here before about the necessity of removing waste from the body, detoxifying the body. You heard me say that when you're cleansing the body, clean the colon first, also then clean the liver, then clean the blood. The same applies to your brain, all parts of the body. Detoxification is essential to health. You wouldn't use the restroom. You wouldn't go and have a bowel movement and leave it in your toilet for weeks and days and years on end. That could be problematic. So if you wouldn't use dishes and leave food in them and leave it in your sink for months and years and years and years, the food would rot, spoil, and your house would smell very unpleasant. And so if this is true with respect to other areas of life, you would have to understand that it's also true with respect to our bodies. And so here we have a way we're finding now that sleep is crucial, essential for our brains to actually be detoxified. The article goes on to say the clincher is that this system ramps up its activity during sleep. The glymphatic system has been discovered to be chiefly responsible for removing toxic waste from the brain. And as he points out, the clincher is that it does its activity during the time that we're asleep, thereby allowing our brains to clear out toxins, including harmful proteins linked to brain disorders such as Alzheimer's, he says, for example. He points out that what's more, they discovered that our brain cells actually shrink by about 60% during the time that we're asleep, and this allows for more efficient waste removal. So our brain cells shrink. It's almost like, imagine like maybe little streams of water or several rivers that are trying to go through and clean, but they can't get through. And then someone somehow goes through and they dig a little canal through and allows the water to go through. But they dig a canal that's 40 feet across and allows the fluid to go through. This is something similar to what happens in our brains. According to Dr. Mercola says, according to lead author Mackin Nedergaard, I think her name is pronounced Nedergaard, MD. She says this study shows that the brain has different functional states when asleep and when awake. In fact, the restorative nature of sleep appears to be the result of the active clearance of the byproducts of neural activity that accumulate during wakefulness. He goes on to say, Dr. Mercola says, in your body, the lymphatic system is a system responsible for eliminating cellular waste products. However, the lymphatic system does not include. The blood-brain barrier is a barrier in your brain, and he points out the reason for this is the blood-brain barrier. Again, the blood-brain barrier is a barrier in your brain, basically, or in your bloodstream, which actually controls what can go into your brain and what cannot. In a previous animal study, the same Dr. Nedergaard showed that the brain actually has its own unique waste disposal system, and it's similar to that of your separate lymphatic system. And this system she calls the lymphatic system, and it piggybacks on the blood vessels in your brain. So the G in lymphatic is a nod to glial cells, the brain cells that actually manage this detoxification system. So by pumping cerebral spinal fluid through your brain tissues, the lymphatic system actually flushes the waste from your brain back into your body's circulatory system. From there, the waste eventually reaches your liver, cleansed or eliminated from your body. During sleep, the lymphatic system becomes 10 times more active than during the time that you are awake. Simultaneously, your brain cells are reduced in size, like I said earlier, by about 60%. So this system, what you call it, the lymphatic system, becomes 10 times more active when we're asleep than when we're awake. And so that means it increases the ability to clean toxins and poisons out of your brain area by 10 times the amount it could do so when you're awake. He points out how this creates more space in between the cells, giving the cerebral spinal fluid more space to flush out the debris. He says that amyloid beta, for example, which are the proteins that form the notorious plaque found in the brains of those who have Alzheimer's, is removed in significantly greater quantities when you're asleep. And then he cites a quote in Time magazine that says, quote, "The findings raise interesting questions about how sleep may affect the progression of Alzheimer's or other neurodegenerative disorders, but they also provide a strong warning for anybody who skips sleep. The short version, don't." And again, back to the lead author of the study, Dr. Nadergaard, she says, quote, "The brain only has limited energy at its disposal, and it appears that it must choose between two different functional states, awake and aware, or asleep and cleaning up. She says you can think of it like having a house party. You can either entertain the guests or clean up the house, but you can't really do both at the same time. These findings," she says, "have significant implications for treating dirty brain disease like Alzheimer's. Understanding precisely how and when the brain activates the lymphatic system and clears waste is a critical first step," she says, "in efforts to potentially modulate the system and make it work more efficiently." So think about that. We natural health practitioners have always said it's very, very important to cleanse the body first. We've always said that. And once you understand the necessity of cleansing the colon and the gastrointestinal tract, and if you listened to me on before, I've talked about the second brain that you have in your gastrointestinal tract, the neurons. You have pretty much the exact type of neurons that you have in your brain, you have in your gastrointestinal tract, and these neurons actually send messages up to your brain. So many people who have depression and other problems, mental problems, they actually have mental illness of the second brain in the gastrointestinal tract first before they have mental illness of the brain at the top. And so you have to remember, when we're talking about the body, we have to address the body from a holistic perspective. And when those natural practitioners talk about cleansing and cleaning, it's not only for the outward of the body, the outside of the body rather, but it's very, very important to cleanse both the inside and the outside of the body. Now back to this article with respect to our physical health, or with our brain, the cleansing of this brain, of this system, this new scientific evidence that has come out. Dr. Marcola points out further, he says, sleep is usually one of the first things people sacrifice when the going gets tough, and this could be a critical mistake. First of all, he says significant memory impairment can occur after a single night of poor sleep, meaning only 4 to 6 hours. So if you're a person that you're suffering from sleep deprivation and you're getting 4 to 6 hours of sleep, and I've experienced it myself, not getting enough sleep, and my memory, I can see the difference in my memory if I don't get enough sleep. Significant. And as he points out, significant memory impairment can occur after just one night of poor sleep, meaning getting between 4 to 6 hours of sleep. He points out how it's also detrimental. It also has a detrimental impact, rather, on your ability to think clearly the next day. And not only that, it decreases your problem-solving ability. So students, if you're not getting sleep, if you're working in a job that requires, all jobs require the use of your brain in some capacity, you're going to lessen the capacity, your capacity to work efficiently, to be sharp and have skill when you're not getting enough sleep. And there's really nothing you can do about it if you didn't get enough sleep, because it's just a physical impossibility for the brain to operate to the extent that it would have operated had you gotten the amount of sleep that you needed. Dr. Mercola points out further, but foggy-headedness and forgetfulness are the least of the worries should you ignore your poor sleeping habits. He says, aside from impacting your immune function, as briefly mentioned earlier, poor sleep is now known to have multivariate detrimental effects on your health, courtesy of your circadian system. Now, I wrote about this also in my book, Biblical Foundations of Wellness. and I talk extensively not extensively, but I talk a great degree about the importance of sleep. Because in this book, I talked about the 8 laws of health that we've been discussing here, and one of the ones I talked about from a scientific position was sleep, and how the many multivariate detrimental effects on your health and on your body when you don't get enough sleep. And again, it disrupts your circadian system, which drives the rhythms of the biological activity at the cellular level of your body. Also, and you have to understand that disruptions to the biological clock tend to cascade outward through your entire body. And then Dr. Mercola points out some of the things that are affected when you don't get enough sleep. And we're talking about how it affects your brain. It increases your risk of heart disease. It can harm your brain by halting new cell production. He points out how sleep deprivation can increase your level of corticosterone, which is a stress hormone, resulting in fewer new brain cells being created in your hippocampus, which is an area of your brain. And it can impair your ability to lose excess pounds or maintain your ideal weight. And he says this is likely the effect of altered metabolism, because when you're sleep deprived, leptin, which is a hormone that signals satiety or makes you, it's the hormone that makes you feel hungry or want to eat. He says this hormone falls while ghrelin, which signals hunger, rises. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Leptin is the one that makes you feel full, and ghrelin is the one that makes you feel hungry. It also contributes to your pre-diabetic state, making you feel hungry even if you've already eaten, which can actually wreak havoc on your weight as well. Some of you may know that if you're having problems with your diet or controlling your appetite. It can actually accelerate, lack of sleep can also actually accelerate tumor growth, primarily due to disrupted melatonin production. And melatonin actually inhibits the proliferation of a wide range of cancer cell types, as well as triggering cancer and cell destruction, cell death destruction. So the hormone also interferes, again, melatonin interferes with new blood supply tumors require for their rapid growth. So when you're not getting the amount of melatonin you need, it's not just it makes me feel sleepy, but it has serious, potentially dangerous and serious effects with respect to cancer developing in the body and tumors growing. Lack of sleep actually also raises your blood pressure. It can also contribute to premature aging by interfering with your growth hormone production, normally released by your pituitary gland during the time that you're asleep, and also during certain types of exercise, such as high-intensity training. Not only that, a lack of sleep can also exacerbate chronic diseases, as Dr. Mercola points out, as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, gastrointestinal tract disorders, kidney disease, as well as behavioral problems in children. So we can see how something as simple as lacking sleep can cause all kinds of problems. And so when the brain, which is dirty, or you have dirty brain disease, I guess you could call it, if you're not getting enough sleep, that's what it leads to. If the brain has a specific system designed to detoxify it, and this system works primarily when we're asleep, and if we're not getting enough sleep, of course we end up with dirty brain disease, the same way many people have dirty bowels or dirty blood or dirty liver. And the ultimate outcome of that is that you will get sick. You've heard me say this before. Your pH will be thrown off. It will become it will move from being slightly alkaline to being acid. The acid pH of the fluids of the system will cause inflammation to set in, and inflammation is a marker for many diseases. You're listening to Phase 3 Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Keith Henry. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back, and we're going to flip over to our next segment. And this segment is our healing food segment, and we're going to talk about the benefits of 2 different foods. We're going to talk of fruit. We're going to talk about some of the health benefits of mulberries. You'd be surprised to find out how efficient these things are that the Creator has given us. And we're also going to talk about an unusual tropical fruit, ravioli, which is said to be 10,000 times more effective at treating cancer than some types of chemotherapy. Again, you're listening to Phase 3 Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Keith Henry. I'll be back in just a moment. And we're going to go ahead and go into our first healing fruit today. And sometimes we talk about several, sometimes we talk about one. We're going to talk about 2 today. We're going to talk about mulberry, the mulberry. And again, if you don't know what it looks like, just Google a picture of a mulberry. Google or Bing or Yahoo. And let's talk a little bit about it. Mulberry is actually very nutrient dense, and the berries can also add a nice boost to your daily diet, because not only are the berries beneficial, but also the leaves are beneficial. And if you look at the mulberry in terms of some of the nutritional benefits of it, it actually provides a very impressive amount of fiber. In fact, just 1/3 cup of mulberry gives you about 20% of your daily requirement of fiber. As you know, all fruits have fiber. They have digestible fiber, and this is why you hear me talk about eating in harmony with the colors of the rainbow. Again, you heard me say that the closer you eat to the garden and the closer you eat in harmony with the colors of the rainbow, the better off you will be. The healthier you will be, etc. Now, also, I would like to talk about, with respect to mulberry, the benefits of it in terms of protein. It actually has they're a very good source of protein as well. They carry about 4 grams of protein per serving. Not only that, research has shown that extracts of white mulberry actually can inhibit both hepatitis C as well as HIV. So again, that's a mulberry, one of those fruits that the Creator has given us. Due to notable levels of resveratrol, scientists tell us the berry possesses anti-carcinogenic or anti-cancer causing as well as anti-inflammatory properties. It also, some of the research also shows that that these mulberries, because of their high amounts of antioxidants and that are very neuroprotective, they can protect the brain against Parkinson's as well as Alzheimer's. They also are full of antibacterial as well as antiviral properties, which actually can actually help keep down inflammation as well as cancer as well as diabetes. And as a result of having all these antioxidants, it naturally helps keep aging down. Finally, blood sugar levels are tamed with mulberry as well. And so if you are a diabetic, eating these berries can actually help keep your blood sugar stabilized. In fact, there's some scientists have believed that DNJ, one of the constituents of mulberry, actually minimizes the risk of diabetes mellitus. So again, if you haven't eaten mulberries, or if you're not familiar with mulberries, I highly recommend that you add them to your diet. They're actually also very high in your vitamin B complex. Your B complex vitamins, that's very, very good if you deal with stress, your adrenal glands. They're also high in vitamin C as well as in vitamin K. They have good significant amounts of iron, potassium, manganese, as well as magnesium. So you're dealing there with as you can see, a power-packed piece of fruit there when we're dealing with mulberries. Now we're going to look at the fruit, not a new fruit, but it's considered a superfruit. I came across it maybe a couple of years ago, actually quite by accident, and began to do a little bit more research on it. And it's not something that's that popular here in the U.S. as of yet. More and more research is starting to come out on it, but it's called graviola. And graviola is basically, it's also known as soursop. Many of my friends, and maybe from the Jamaica, the Caribbean, other areas, they would be, especially from Jamaica, they would be familiar with soursop. That's one of the names is known as. But it's really a fruit. It's known as soursop, gunabana, and it represents a lot more than just a pretty name. It's actually a superfruit, and it contains a whole lots of compounds that are thousands of times more effective than chemotherapy at treating many types of cancer. Now, there's one article from naturalnews.com said that scientific research published in the Journal of Natural Products back in 1996 revealed, perhaps for the first time ever, that graviola and graviola seeds in particular contain a cytotoxic compound that is literally 10,000 times more potent than the common chemotherapy drug, adriamycin, at treating cancer. And the article said that unlike this and other toxic chemotherapy drugs, graviola does not damage healthy cells in the process and it only targets malignant cells for destruction. It's very interesting. According to the article, this particular article I'm looking at right now, it grows wild in the Amazon rainforest and is quite large and looks similar to an avocado, but inside it contains a white fleshy pulp that can be eaten whole or you can juice it. It's like in Brazil, it says, for example, the fruit of graviola has long been used to make fresh juice or mixed with milk and then frozen to make fresh sherbet. He says that the fruit can also be dried and turned into powder for distribution in colder regions where the fruit does not grow natively. So here we have another one of those powerful fruit that the Creator has given us, that if we were eating these types of fruits and eating these things on a consistent basis, we would not see the constant rise of cancer and some of these other diseases, especially cancer. It's one of the fastest growing abnormalities that we're dealing with now. Not only that, the fruit actually has some other benefits as well. Beforehand there was not a lot of science to back up as many claims about the health benefits that were being made by these native cultures, but which is usually the case where indigenous people have been using these things and they've seen the benefits, and someone says, oh, well, there's no science behind it, or this and that and the other. And I'm not trying to minimize the effect of science and the benefit of science, but you also have to use common sense. And if you have something that a people or a culture has been using for years or for centuries, and it's been working consistently, science needs to sometimes take down and say, okay, maybe there's something here, and not just write it off. Research shows that with extract from graviola, this tree is actually made with extract. If you take extract from this tree, the research shows that it may be possible to attack cancer safely as well as effectively with an all-natural therapy that does not cause extreme nausea, nor weight loss, nor hair loss. Not only that, the research shows that it also may be able to protect your immune system and avoid deadly infections. It may also be able to make you feel stronger and healthier throughout the course of cancer treatment, and it also may be able to boost your energy and improve your outlook on life by lifting your spirits and helping even with depression. Now, there was that same article that I mentioned earlier from naturalnews.com says this. It says, not surprisingly, the drug industry has repeatedly tried to synthesize and patent the disease-fighting compounds found naturally in graviola. Leaked data reveals that one unnamed drug company in particular spent 7 years and hundreds of millions of dollars trying to replicate graviola's innate healing compounds and claim them as its own. But these efforts ultimately failed, and thanks to an insider source, we now know the truth about graviola. Beyond this, the article says there is also copious published science replete with evidence corroborating what this drug company found. The National Cancer Institute, for instance, has known since the 1970s that graviola leaves and branches attack and destroy malignant cancer cells, and research conducted many years later at the Catholic University in South Korea found that graviola seeds target colon and lung cancer cells. As far as the fruit goes, you may be able to find it at some grocery and health food stores in your area, as the Citizens column. Says there are several different soursop juice manufacturers, distributors, and suppliers worldwide. So here you have something I said before. It's not that many of the pharmaceutical companies do not really believe or know the benefit of many herbs and remedies. It's that they recognize these things given in their natural state, and thereby being unable to patent them pose a threat to their financial dominance and their financial monopolies in many cases. And so as a result, rather than try and fight with them with these, they simply try and suppress them, or they simply put out propaganda tearing down natural remedies, tearing down natural remedy practitioners, and making fun of that which actually works, so that many people would buy their particular product. And this, again, I don't want to be to understand to say that I am against allopathic medicine. I'm not. It has its place. I'm against the abuses of it, against the dishonesty of those who would be dishonest with respect to what its capacities are and those who would try and use it to shut out free market and to suppress the ability of others to bring goods, products, and services to the marketplace that could benefit all of us, and so that they might monopolize the system and keep many things away from people who many people I suspect have died, who had some of these healing, or had they known about some of these healing herbs or healing foods, would have lived to this day. They would have gotten more time, but for the greed of some individuals, or whatever might have been their motivation. You're listening to Phase 3 Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Keith Henry. We're going to go ahead and pivot into our last segment, and this segment is Healing Herb, Healing Supplement segment. We didn't get to it last week. We're going to begin, as I said earlier today, with it, but we won't finish it. And this is Siberian ginseng. It's also known as electro root. Other names are devil shrub, touch me not, etc. This is one of my favorite remedies to recommend because I've seen it work, and I've seen it work time and time again, and I've seen it work consistently, especially when taken in extract or tincture form. Now, Siberian ginseng is, of course, it's a shrub, and the use of Siberian dates back about 2,000 years. However, it was, quote, rediscovered in Siberia in 1855 and mistaken for ginseng, and used with good results as a substitute for Panax ginseng. Thus, it was named Siberian ginseng. Now, ginseng, or Siberian ginseng, is considered an adaptogen. And an adaptogen is known in herbology as a herb that actually helps us to adapt to particular situations, and it also helps the body to adapt, and thereby it normalizes your body functions. It inhibits the stress response by reducing the activity of the adrenal cortex. In fact, it is an immune stimulant that is especially useful for preventing infection during times of intense physical activity as well as prolonged periods of stress. That's one of the cases that I recommend taking it in my practice is when people are under a large amount of stress, their adrenal glands are being depleted, they're going into or already in adrenal fatigue. It's one of the things that I recommend that they take to help rebuild their adrenals, to help their adrenal, help prevent going into a state of adrenal fatigue, because there's a lot of pressure on your adrenal glands, the consuming of your B-complex vitamins, which can be very problematic. This again is one of the reasons it's my favorite, one of my favorite herbs. Again, Siberian ginseng we're speaking about here. Also, Siberian ginseng is a stress fighting, not only a stress fighting herb, but it's also a depression relieving herb. It does have depression relieving capacities to it. In fact, it's even been used in the treatment of ADD, or attention deficit disorder. And also, some athletes use it it's been shown to give them strength or more longevity, as I said earlier, when they're working out. Now, Siberian ginseng, let me explain, it actually supports your body by helping your liver detoxify harmful toxins. You heard me talk about how very, very important it is to keep that liver detoxified. It also can help when it comes to detoxifying the body. It also can be helped, or rather the liver. It can also be beneficial in helping to detoxify the liver in terms when there have been chemotherapeutic agents introduced into your body, or radiation exposure, or you've been introduced or exposed to radiation, and the liver needs to be helped detoxify. In any of these issues, Siberian ginseng is very, very helpful in these situations. Preliminary studies in Russia confirm the use of Siberian ginseng for people undergoing chemotherapy as well as radiation therapy for cancer to help actually alleviate the side effects and to help bone marrow recover more quickly. So again, if you are going through cancer, chemotherapy, etc. right now, I would recommend, and again, this is not medical advice, but I would recommend that if you look into Siberian ginseng to help offset some of the side effects, if that's the way that you've chosen to go, is also look into COQ10 to help actually also offset some of the side effects. We're going to stop right there with some of the Siberian ginseng can do with respect to offsetting some of the side effects of cancer. We'll continue with that. We'll plan to continue with that next week. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'm about out of time. I'd like to thank you for listening to Phase 3 Wellness. And I'd like to ask you to remind you to visit me again next week, same time, same place. I'd like to remind you, if you're listening to this show and you came in the middle, the replay will be available in probably about 10 minutes after the show is over. You can listen again. You can listen on your cell phone, mobile device, on your laptop, whatever it is. Until next week, God bless.
The high fashion hotline.
Help. The first day of school's right around the corner, and I don't have enough time to get all my shopping done.
Leave it to Old Navy.
Old Navy?
Yup. Now you can make back-to-school shopping easy with buy online, pick up in store. It's fun, fast, and free.
Wow. Free pickup in store? That's a serious time saver.
And here's a serious money saver. Right now, the latest kids' styles start at $5, with kids' jeans from $10 and tees from just $6.
Kids' styles from just $5? What are we waiting for? Old Navy, here we come.
High fashion. Old Navy. Valid 7/20 to 7/29. Select styles only.